Hello, I'm George Abernathy, the proud president of FreightWaves. Welcome to the Net Zero Carbon Summit, a virtual summit presented by FreightWaves. I'm really thrilled for our keynote today to have one of the industry leaders, an industry leader who has been really at the forefront of finding technology that has been impacting positively our industry for a couple of decades. My good friend, Craig Harper, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer and EVP at J.B. Hunt. Craig, it is a genuine pleasure to do this today. Thank you.
It's always good to see you, George. Look forward to our conversation today.
So let's kick it right off. You have been at the forefront of technologies. You have looked at, in your position at J.B. Hunt over the years, at a number of the evolving technologies. And so when it comes to reducing carbon emissions, J.B. Hunt, in a leadership role in the industry itself in general, has been looking at fuel efficiency and route optimization in the last few decades already, correct?
Yeah, we're very fortunate here at JB Hunt to be in the intermodal space. We've been in that now for 30 plus years, and you've got to really look there first. I mean, when you can eliminate your carbon emissions by 50% by placing the freight on the train instead of running it over the road, you've got to look there first. And obviously that's a place that we've really expanded on. We just announced last week we'll actually net up 12,000 containers this year, putting us over 110,000 containers, and obviously corresponding chassis that we need to operate that business, and the tractors that go with it, and the drivers, and the dray operation. So intermodal needs to be on everybody's mind, and we would challenge everybody in this space, in the supply chain industry, to look at the freight and be sure that every single load that can go intermodal is traveling that way. Because when we look at the freight from the bid activity that we see coming in and all, we believe there's an additional 7 to 11 million loads currently that fit the scenario of pricing, length of haul, the time that could really go intermodal. So that's one area that I'd really challenge all the listeners and attendees to take a good look at that intermodal freight.
So well said, and congratulations for the continued growth, and what an evolution from, as you and I talked about my time at J.B. Hunt many decades ago, to see that intermodal has become such a dominant play for J.B. Hunt, and the positive impact that has and will continue to have on the environment. So let's think about what is driving the trucking and logistics industry, maybe the entire supply chain. What's the primary driver that's causing you think this focus now on the decarbonization and these net zero goals of this core environmental, social, and corporate, the ESG planning? What's the primary driver behind it?
Well, with so much talk today about climate change and all, we're going to be brought into that conversation pretty quickly, because the transportation and logistics space contributes about 30% of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. So when you start looking at our industry, we need to look for those efficiencies that we can have. And we talked about intermodal, and you did mention route optimization earlier, and we use JB Hunt 360 for that. We're proud to say that last year, even on our own equipment, we were able to eliminate over 4.3 million miles by effectively using JB Hunt 360. So again, using that, being able to see the loads and having that transparency of the loads and where the equipment is, and so that we can better utilize the trucks, the trailers, and the drivers. And that's a platform that the various carriers are utilizing, and they're seeing similar benefits as well. So now the question directly was about what's really driving this, and we hit on about how much greenhouse gas emissions that we contribute as an industry, and then with the ESG talk that you're seeing coming from all angles. We see it coming from the investors. Investors want to know that you're looking at the different climate scenarios and that you have plans to address those risks. Also, we're seeing it from customers, because customers are getting asked by their customers, what are you doing about the greenhouse gas footprint? And an important thing for everybody to understand is you divide up your greenhouse gas emissions into three different scopes. Scope one is what's generated by your own equipment. And then scope two is your electricity. And scope three is the indirect emissions. And so that's where the customers are looking at all of us in the supply chain to say, what can you do to help us reduce those scope three emissions? So that's driving a big part of this. And then you also have all the vendors and suppliers that are wanting to know, what can you do to help them with their emissions? And then employees. Employees want to know that they work at a company that really does have true concern about the climate. And then also the communities in which we live. They're wanting to know what are you doing to be a better steward of the environment in which you operate. And with the communities, we really saw that come to the forefront this past year with the pandemic. And I couldn't be more proud of our industry when you saw, so much of the country literally shut down. But the drivers, they were still out there. The drivers, the mechanics, the frontline workers, truck stop operators. And that's where I think our industry really stepped up and demonstrated how important we are to our local communities. I know people were glad to see those trucks rolling in, continuing to deliver the food, the water, and the medical supplies.
We at FreightWaves try very hard to make sure whenever we're talking to an industry leader like you, to make sure that our thanks to the drivers who kept our economy alive, and your point is so well taken that in the world of first responders, we tend not to always think as much about how much that the economy was going to be impacted if the drivers weren't there to keep those wheels moving, and doing such a great job of shifting away from some of those things that weren't shipping during the pandemic and over to those things that suddenly needed to be shipped. So let me paint a picture, Craig. If I'm a shipper and I've got these ESG desires, I'm getting some of those external pressures from the community and the investors that you're talking about. What should I do is my first step to build this ESG roadmap, or to try to get there. And I want to reduce greenhouse. I want to do all those things, but what should my first step be if I've really not ever put any thought to it before?
Yeah, first off, take an inventory of where you are. What processes do you have in place? What actions are you taking? What policies do you have in place? What about investments? And lean on these reporting agencies and the rating agencies, because the things that they're asking you to report on, they will open up your eyes, and you'll see areas where you're very strong, and you'll see areas where you need to improve. And then own your own story. Be sure that you tell the story, because if you leave it up to others, sometimes they may not get it exactly right. And so when you look at these agencies and you look at the work that you're doing there, and you set out to improve those, be patient. Understand that this is a journey. It's not going to change overnight, but you can see improvements as you go along. And then talk to others in the industry. Lean on trade groups and organizations, and you'll get a path laid out of how you can really improve in this area, and one that all the groups that we talked about before will be pleased to see that the work that you're accomplishing, such as your investors and your employees and the communities and all your vendors.
As I think about your career, you have spec'd out so many different types of trucks. You know what it takes to move and to turn those wheels, and the shift to intermodal, such a dramatic impact that JB Hunt has had. But Hunt has also been you've been at the forefront of clean fuel and energy initiatives for a long time. You've got a number of partnerships that you've worked on or are working on, bio blends, electric, the natural gas options. Do you, if there's any crystal ball, I'd be interested in having, it would be the Craig Harper in this area. Do you see someone winning out? And I'm not trying to influence the markets at all, but do you see where a particular technology is likely to win in the lead? Or do you think 10 years from now we'll see a blend of those alternatives as part of the market?
This is an exciting part of the business right now. You're seeing so many different technologies come about, and focusing on battery electric, the hydrogen fuel cell, and natural gas, and how are all these going to fit together, and what is going to be the lead technology. And right now, I think we'd all have to say that battery electric has the momentum. I mean, every OEM, from the automobile manufacturers to trucks manufacturers, are chasing this technology, and they're making substantial progress in that area. And then I think you will see hydrogen electric really be talked about more in the next few years. And it's trailing battery electric, but it is out there and it offers great promise. I mean, when you can take an element, and remember, it's the most plentiful element on Earth, and take that element and combine it with oxygen and provide the electricity needed to power the truck, and have water as a byproduct. I mean, who wouldn't want that? So I think we need to continue to look at that hydrogen technology. And it's going to be interesting to see, which one does win out. But we've got a long ways to go, because all of these have to prove that they've got a total cost of ownership that's comparable to diesel. And when I'm talking about total cost of ownership, I'm talking about the price of the vehicle, with the price of the fuel. What about the maintenance? What about the weight and range? Are you going to be able to maximize the payload? Are you going to be able to go through an entire duty cycle with the truck? So the residual value comes into play as well. So there's a lot of factors that we have to work on and be sure that all those come together. Because at the end of the day, for all of us to do good, for all of us to improve the world of sustainability, we have to be sustainable as well.
Well, that's so well said. So let me think a little bit about the public and private sector elements to this, Craig. You've talked about that really everyone, the shipping community is really pushing towards ESG goals. Are you seeing the public sector following? Are you hearing things, whether it be the local, state, or national? I know we've got Green New Deal and the like, but are the solutions going to come from the private sector, but with the help of the public sector? How do you think that's going to play out?
Yes, this cannot be done in a silo. We need both the public and the private sector to work together here. And we need to be realistic about the technologies and where they are and when they can come about, and also about the cost of these technologies and how that's going to transition. So we've got to work together on this, and I see that going on in certain areas in certain states, but there's got to be a lot of exploration here. I mean, it's not as simple as what people think. Just because you have hydrogen, the most plentiful element, doesn't mean that it's easy to strip it off of water or off of methane. Just because you have electricity going to your building doesn't necessarily mean that you can charge the electric vehicle. So that's where, working together with the public and private sector, we can see the best places to implement this equipment and get some out there operating. That's how we're all going to learn. So yes, there needs to be ways to get this equipment, incentives and grants. are going to have to play a part in this. Just the cost is just too much to bear when you see that the available equipment, when it is available, which is very limited right now, is running about 3 times the cost of the diesel comparable vehicle. So yes, we got to work together, public and private.
That's interesting. So I want to go back. I've been around the intermodal world a fair amount. I'm really fascinated by the impact that this has had on JB Hunt and on our industry. So a lot of talk each year, a lot that is published around the investments that are being made on the infrastructure to allow intermodal to be considered as an alternative to over the road. We tend to have the thought that, well, if I'm going a long enough haul, or I'm going Chicago to LA, but it's true that, and I think your opening was, consider all the options that are out there. There's a lot more medium haul movements that could be done efficiently enough by intermodal service than there may have been 3, 5, 7 years ago. I'm right on that, aren't I?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What you've seen with time is that length of haul that's been targeted for intermodal continues to shrink. And, used to be you're looking for a freight that was truly cross-country. But now the question is, if the freight takes more than a day to travel, then why in the world isn't it going intermodal? And you may have a good reason, but we all need to look at those again, because with the 50% reduction, I mean, JB Hunt alone, we reduced our CO2 emissions last year by 3.4 million metric tons by using intermodal. So that's why we're big fans of saying let's look there first. And then also, taking this a step further, we're hoping that intermodal could be a great place to put in battery electric vehicles and possibly hydrogen eventually. So you put that in the mix, then it even gets cleaner.
Absolutely. So getting to net zero isn't simply about fuel. It's a lot about it and finding the right mode, as you just described. But how is JB Hunt, and what are some of the processes and software, like JB Hunt 360, that you are using now, and what do you envision? You've kicked the tires on a lot of software as well. Do you see the technology investment continuing to need to be made in order to pay off downstream with efficiencies and reductions in miles and the like?
Absolutely. We're very excited about the progress that we've made in 360. And as I mentioned earlier about the 4.3 million miles that we eliminated empty miles by using 360, by mixing and matching the loads better. And we're so excited about it that we have formed an alliance with Google to co-innovate the next generation of supply chain software. So you'll continue to see developments there. Also, internally, we have engineers in each of the business segments, dedicated, the truckload and intermodal groups that are constantly utilizing our proprietary software to eliminate waste and reduce needless spend and saving fuel for not running those empty miles by, again, using that software to deliver the freight more efficiently.
So, going to throw you a smidgen of a curveball here, but having read Bill Gates's recent book, and I think that, the somewhat outlandish hopes of trying to get to net zero in a 2030 kind of time frame, but he's saying 2050. Our industry as well as anybody. Is that 2050 kind of time frame? Do you think that, as you look in your crystal ball, do you think that that's something out there that we could be to net zero carbon by then?
That's an excellent question, and all the things that have to happen to get there. I have a hope and belief, and I see that we need to get there. When you see the way that technology has advanced, how wind and solar picked up a lot more momentum and faster than what people were projecting. And when I look at the dollars that are going into this space across the globe, that's what gives me hope and about new technologies. We're going to have new technologies. We've got to continue to test new products and service offerings, and that's where that public and private sector have to work again. And we need to explore all the technologies. You talked about Bill Gates, and he's investing in carbon capture and storage. So we need to look at that because there's a lot of smart people out there that believe that the only way we can get to net zero is if we really have a way to carbon capture. So that's one of the technologies. And then, there's a lot of breakthroughs just on the verge with battery technology, and that could make that piece of equipment offer more solutions than what people are initially thinking. At first blush, people think, well, battery is for the short haul and hydrogen's for longer haul. And really, you've got to dig deeper into that. And we had a great debate last week that was sponsored by the Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas, where I had Hyzon representing the hydrogen fuel cell side, and then had Lion Electric representing the battery side. And it was a great debate, and you could see from both these gentlemen and their companies that there really can be an environment in which they both live and coexist. And that's what's going to be interesting to see how that develops and other technologies, and then ways to find to be able to pull that carbon out of there and capture it. And there's in the book you've read about it, a lot of other industries that need to be looked at, such as the building, the cement industry. And so it just didn't in transportation. As we said earlier, we're 30%, but that means there's 70% other places we need to evaluate.
Yeah, as you described, into building materials, cement, into steel, it really is a fascinating thing, and all of those that we've got to be considerate of going forward. So as I'm going to land the plane here, as Craig Harper is, J.B. Hunt being publicly traded, but what will be next? You guys have done so many remarkable things. What will be next to, we look back in 5 years and say, yeah, that was a real turning point. Is it in software? Is it going to be in the trucks, or is the blend going to be what ends up making the difference in the next 5 years?
I think it is going to be a blend, but we've got to have new technology with the trucks and to get these goods moved. And a big part of that then goes to creating the most efficient transportation network in North America, and that's our goal at J.B. Hunt. And we want to do that by having the right equipment that we own out there, offering intermodal solution, but then that software is going to be key in that, to be able to show to have the transparency and the visibility to see all the loads out there and all the capacity out there, and for that to come together and run it in the most efficient way and reduce as much waste as possible. And it's going to take all that to really get where we need to go. But we've got to have new technology and developments, and we're going to do our part to contribute to that.
Well, that is a perfect place to land this plane. I want to thank Craig Harper, the Chief Sustainability Officer, Executive Vice President, industry guru, industry icon. Craig, you know how much I appreciate you doing this, and all of our viewers do as well. I can't think of a better way to kick off the Net Zero Carbon Summit than to have someone like you and like J.B. Hunt giving support to this. So thanks so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me. Again, it's always a pleasure visiting with you, and I always learn something. So thank you.
Craig Harper, you're the best. I appreciate it. Everybody, enjoy the rest of the Net Zero Carbon Summit virtually. I look forward to seeing everyone in person at F3, the Future of Freight Festival here in Chattanooga in November. If you don't know about that, reach out to FreightWaves, and we'll be doing a lot of net zero carbon at that time as well. Have a wonderful summit. I appreciate everything. Have a great day.